We got time today. I'm gonna make time every time something like this happens. So go ahead on, Don Lemon. You was absolutely right about that. I'm sighing deeply. I got my fire extinguisher. I'm almost ready to get out of my seat, and this is time for me to throw some damn papers. I don't want to tear up Jordan. I'm trying not to tear up my damn studio, so I throw papers. But those are microaggressions. This is the kind of stuff black people got to go through all the time. Now, Don Lemon and I got the luxury to debate people on TV. You know what I mean? Other people go through some more hellified microaggressions in this country because folks don't understand. And damn it, Dr. King did lecture. Damn white neoliberals, he did. And so did Minister Malcolm X. Woo, anyway. Jordan and I are about to go on. Let me see if Sachi gave me some comments here. Oh, one of the greats have left the face of this earth. And we're gonna talk about him, the great Harry Belafonte. We got Maximus, oh, your grandmother, Nina, truth and fire. Good trees make good fruit, indeed. Thank you, Maximus. Michael, burn the script. I know that's right, Mike. I don't know that y'all don't want Nina Turner unleashed. You just don't want it. The world ain't ready for it, not just this country. And on YouTube Super Chat, Donald, bring the smoke and blow that fire, Nina. Thank y'all all. But I hope y'all see how ridiculous these fools are. All right, here we go. Iconic activist, artist, and singer, Mr. Harry Belafonte passed away yesterday at his home in Manhattan at the age of 96 years old. I want you guys to watch this from a 2005, what Mr. Harry Belafonte had to say at the Congressional Black Caucus Town Hall. Take a look.
Harry Belafonte, thank you. Thank you for a lifetime of commitment and struggle. And it's a man who is the 21st century's example of the great Frederick Douglass, who speaks truth to power. And you should know that we not only appreciate it, but we respect what you do and what you stand for, unbought, unbossed, and unbowed. That is unique in America today. Thank you.
Very, very unique in America today. Harry Belafonte, 96, dies. He's a barrier-breaking singer, actor, and activist. Harry Belafonte, who stormed the pop charts and smashed racial barriers in the 1950s with his highly personal brand of folk music, and who went on to become a dynamic force in the civil rights movement, died on Tuesday at his home on the Upper West Side of Manhattan. He was 96. The cause was congestive heart failure. Let's go to the next clip of the one and only Harry Belafonte.
Martin said, you know, I've been thinking long and hard about our struggle. We worked tenaciously for our rights. And the culmination of all that effort will be reflected in what we've come to call the integration movement. And I sit here deeply concerned that I suspect we are leading our nation on an integration trip that has us integrating into a burning house.
Yeah, Harry Belafonte believed that he was quoting the Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. and Dr. King's frustration with the political process. Just a great, great man. Can you all just put up the tweet that I put up with Mr. Belafonte's quote? This is part one. The man's life is so dynamic, so large. We're gonna do a two-part on Mr. Harry Belafonte, but we would have been remiss on this show not to lay out some of what Mr. Harry Belafonte had to say. I had the opportunity to meet him, and we're gonna talk about this some more tomorrow. This is what I tweeted out. And this is a quote from the great Harry Belafonte when he said, "I was an activist who became an artist. I was not an artist who became an activist." Harry Belafonte. To Mr. Harry Belafonte's family, just our condolences to you on one of the great legends of our time. Jordan, I know we probably have less than 30 seconds left, but I want to say that Mr. Harry Belafonte, he came, he did that thing.
Sure. Harry Belafonte's life is a perfect example of how everybody, and especially people in entertainment, should use their platform to make the world a better place.
Amen.
Nothing frustrates me more than artists and entertainers, and especially in music, where you have a captive audience night after night in person, and you don't use that platform for good, or you actively shy away from getting involved in politics or social issues because you're pursuing more and more money and bigger crowds. You're too scared of alienating people, so you completely close up and don't associate with any social or political movement. That's cowardice to me. So it's a real testament to his legacy, and you can see that in the reactions to his passing today.
Yeah, you can. All over the world, all over the world. So Mr. Harry Belafonte, rest in power and also in peace. And we'll finish more about his life tomorrow. That is our time today. You know how much what I want you to do. I want you to keep the faith always, always. You need to marry that faith with fight. Thank you, Jordan, for joining us, and we'll see you next time.
Welcome, friends. Welcome, family. What's up, Ma? My mother just went bowling this morning. I expect the text messages and phone calls later about the 500 series that she bowled. But still, welcome to the watch list. I have to get that business out of the way first. Glad you guys could join me on a Tuesday edition of the show. There's a lot going on, but you know what? Just to make sure you guys understand what's happening today. Here.
While I'm on the Dan is Wrong tour, let me also admit that Joe Biden has a much better approval rating than Kamala Harris. So Kamala Harris is the heir apparent. Exactly. Thanks for playing. Thanks for playing, sister. But you're gone. Pete Buttigieg is a favorite. I think Gretchen Whitmer is eyeing for that prize. Gavin Newsom wants some smoke. All of these Democratic men, honestly, other than Gretchen Whitmer, Pete Buttigieg included, feel like the blood in the water. Like they are gunning for Joe Biden if he doesn't feel strong. And Joe Biden's saying, "Fuck yeah, I got the smoke. I have defeated all of you, and you didn't expect me to, and I'm gonna keep doing it literally until I flatline."
That foul-mouthed intellectual there that you saw there with throwing up middle fingers is Dan Evans. Dan from the internet joins me. He's a 2x2 contributor, as you can see. Also host of one of the hosts on Good Morning Bad News over there on TikToks and all of those. I'm glad you got that out of your system before you came on our clean airwaves, Evans.
Yes, TV14 as always. Appreciate JR for keeping the clips ready because even I had forgotten about that prediction today. I feel, I was definitely clinging to the guardrails a little bit, but you know what? I feel vindicated.
But there was in case you guys didn't hear it clearly, these are the potential contestants there if Biden doesn't. That's what Dan was saying. This was 5 months ago. So he's way ahead of the curve. He was giving these predictions. And today, as we know what's already happened, which of course we're going to start with, Joe Biden has announced. Dan gets a chance to talk about this. Let's go.
Freedom. Personal freedom is fundamental to who we are as Americans.
There's nothing more important, nothing more sacred.
That's been the work of my first term, to fight for our democracy.
This shouldn't be a red or blue issue.
To protect our rights, to make sure that everyone in this country is treated equally and that everyone is given a fair shot at making it. But around the country, MAGA extremists are lining up to take on those bedrock freedoms, cutting Social Security that you paid for your entire life while cutting taxes for the very wealthy, dictating what healthcare decisions women can make, banning books, and telling people who they can love, all while making it more difficult for you to be able to vote. When I ran for president 4 years ago, I said we're in a battle for the soul of America, and we still are. The question we're facing is whether in the years ahead, we have more freedom or less freedom, more rights or fewer. I know what I want the answer to be, and I think you do too. This is not a time to be complacent. That's why I'm running for re-election.
Oh, damn. President Biden's running for re-election, completely expected, of course, as he released this announcement video. And you see some of the themes here. Freedom, battle for the soul of America. Well, the second one was a bit of a repeat from the first time around, but freedom, and specifically talking about the things that MAGA Republicans and pundits and all those folks on that side are pushing against democracy. It's something that many Democrats don't always push right away. So let him continue. Here's the back end of that announcement video.
Because I know America. I know we're good and decent people. I know we're still a country that believes in honesty and respect and treating each other with dignity. That we're a nation where we give hate no safe harbor. We believe that everyone is equal, that everyone should be given a fair shot to succeed in this country.
Thank you for choosing us.
Every generation of Americans has faced a moment when they have to defend democracy. Stand up for our personal freedom. Stand up for the right to vote and our civil rights. Let's finish this job. I know we can, because this is the United States of America. There's nothing, simply nothing we cannot do if we do it together.
Exciting music, inspirational images. Joe Biden is running for president again. And as we start off, Dan here had some predictions about potential contenders, but now that he's announced, maybe it's just him. Actually, does he have a chance? And do videos like this is a question I would ask about any of these things. Do videos like this actually help promote and propel him into this campaign? That one specifically.
The videos like this are the parting shot. They're like not the parting shot, they're the beginning shot rather, that kind of sets the tone for the campaign. There's a bunch of other things. I think this was also the day that Joe Biden announced his 2020 presidential campaign. So he wants to try to keep things, again, like more of the same because he thinks that works well for him. He also believes that being able to contrast himself in that video, he's saying that we're fighting for rights to keep our freedoms and things like that. It's an interesting flip of rhetoric that you often hear from the right wing. And it's actually valid because while you can say a lot about what Democrats haven't done, and as a person on the left, I think Joe Biden, there are a lot of things he hasn't gone far enough on. When you look at the Republican side, they're taking away rights left and right, like quite literally on the state level. They're trying to go on the federal level, no accountability whatsoever. And Biden contrasting that message going, look at all that weird stuff. I'm not even going to address the weird stuff. I'm normal. It's a good message, even though I think we could talk about the candidate being very flawed.
Well, we're going to get to that, of course, and you would expect maybe the political opponents to be the ones to do that. So let's see what the RNC had to say. This is their response ad, and think about what Dan just said. We can talk about where there's flaws in the candidate. Does this sound like flaws in the candidate?
This just in, we can now call the 2024 presidential race for Joe Biden.
My fellow Americans.
This morning, an emboldened China invades Taiwan.
Financial markets are in free fall as 500 regional banks have shuttered their doors.
Border agents were overrun by a surge of 80,000 illegals yesterday evening.
Officials closed the city of San Francisco this morning, citing the escalating crime and fentanyl crisis.
Who's in charge here? It feels like the train is coming off the tracks.
The RNC releasing that ad there. It was kind of dark. You know, we've seen that type of stuff before. That's been played over before. You make sure your political image look quite evil and all the actions that they've pulled off. But did you guys check out some of those images? Let's flip through those for a minute because I grabbed a few because they looked creepier than normal. Yes, it's dark. Yes, there's shadows. Yes, there's this sinister smile, especially in this third slide here with he and Vice President Harris there. Man, they're really cheesy. Boy, they got some serious wrinkles. And definitely, they look maniacal. The reason it looks kind of odd is because those are all AI-generated images, not just of the candidates, but throughout that ad. So anytime you see it as we're talking here and it's running through, everything on there is 100% completely AI-generated, which is not real. But neither is the things that they said are going to be happening. This is all what ifs. They said it explicitly and quite clearly there. They're not saying it already happened, like maybe Tucker Carlson would have said. What they're saying is this is going to happen. What if? What if? What if? Throughout that entire ad, which I think is pretty illustrative of the way the Republican Party is working here. It's never really about what's happening or about what they're going to do to make your lives better, but about how afraid you should be of some unknown coming for you type of force that, of course, is always ushered in by Democrats. Now, really fast, again, you were talking about potential flaws. Some may feel there's a flaw. Let's go to this graphic here, number 4. If Biden won his second term, though, this is how old he is the problem. He would extend his streak as the oldest person to sit in the Oval Office. He'd be 82 on Inauguration Day of 2025. Now, despite concerns about his age among Democrats, no serious opposition to Biden has emerged, even as these Republicans continue to grow their field of a bunch of folks that I think have a chance to defeat Biden, specifically, of course, Donald Trump. And also, are Democrats really that happy about it? Polling shows Democrats prefer a candidate other than Biden, but there isn't a consensus on who that alternative would be. An NBC News poll released on Sunday found that 70% of Americans, that includes 51% of Democrats, believe that Biden should not seek that second term. And also half of voters who don't want Biden to run say his age is a major factor. So that's where it's coming from. I'm not sure what some of those flaws are. I'm sure you have them, Dan.
No, I think that's the biggest one people see. People are concerned about the president's age. I mean, Donald Trump was barely made it to the finish line in the November election through COVID-19, which I'm only joking about because he took it so callously and caused so much death to the American people. So if Donald Trump holds a little bit of an L there, whatever. But we see like Joe Biden, there's a lot that we know that, or at least we can speculate that they don't have him out in public as much as we can. When he does, it's a little bit awkward. Sometimes I think it's overblown by the right, but health is a factor. again, from the left, I just think he's not that progressive as a president. He's more progressive than Obama. That's not saying all that much, but when you look at certain policies, he wouldn't do anything different from maybe a standard non-Trumpy Ron DeSantis style Republican when it came to economic issues, fiscal policy, etc. And that is like where a lot of my criticism will come from. And the second part of my criticism is the framing that there aren't any serious Democratic Party candidates, because there's two sides or approaches to this. There's the, as I mentioned in the intro, you have folks like Pete Buttigieg and Gavin Newsom who they respect the Democratic Party machine and that system too much to buck that and go against their incumbent frontrunner. And then you have people like Marianne Williamson, Robert F. Kennedy Jr. I have vastly different opinions on both of those people. But they're going, no, it's still important to have a healthy kind of challenge the incumbency even within a party. And really fast, you look at 2012 with Barack Obama, there wasn't really a serious or like a major candidate that like stood a chance, but they still ran. And I don't think Obama participated in any of those debates, but you still had those debates. I think that process is still good. But the reality is that Joe Biden announcing kind of just clears the path for the incumbency. And it's not necessarily a Joe Biden thing. This is party politics. This is how it's going to be.
I mean, look, Republicans are doing the same thing. We know how this works. I think they were announcing it either yesterday or today that there's debates getting pushed back or not really happening at the same time frame to help, with who they figure will be the nominee here. And it happens with both ways. That's politics. And that's, again, the ones who don't want to shake it up means they could potentially benefit from the help of the party and the money making and the campaigning, all that stuff. So we can see why. We need a little bit more of a shake. But then generally, anyone who's shaking it up doesn't get very far. Speaking of shaking it up and not getting very far, we're only one day out from Tucker Carlson being fired, apparently, from Fox News. I think that's pretty much confirmed by now. But what are they now saying about it? Both Don Lemon and Tucker Carlson. There's now the fallout from the second day. Let's go.
Hi, everybody, and welcome to Fox News Tonight. I am Brian Kilmeade. As you probably have heard, Fox News and Tucker Carlson have agreed to part ways. I wish Tucker the best. I'm great friends with Tucker and always will be. But right now, it's time for Fox News Tonight, so let's get started.
I'm Brian Kilmeade. I'm filling in for Tucker Carlson, who will not be coming back. We like the guy, but let's go ahead and do the news. I feel like they could have done that a little bit differently. So there's Brian Kilmeade sitting in on not Tucker Carlson tonight, but Fox News, I believe is what they're calling it tonight. And he was also excited about filling that chair. Maybe he's going to get a primetime position. Let's see what he tweeted. Join me tonight at 8 p.m. He should have dropped a couple more exclamation points. It'd have been great. But maybe he shouldn't have, because check out some of these responses. And you won't find any responses on your own on Twitter because this tweet has since been deleted. Maybe it's because of this. One person responded with this image of Tucker Carlson carrying Fox News' casket. That's fun. That meme everyone's seen of those folks carrying that casket and dancing. Another big Tom Callahan user said, no chance as far as joining him. Canceled cable today. Damn, that's a bit of an extreme response. It's just one channel, bro. Just don't turn. Stevie Stacks also said, I'd rather watch grass grow. Man, this is getting rough. Carpe Dunctum says, this is the only replacement for Tucker that I will be happy with and make it last forever. Yeah, Dan, I said Carpe Dunctum. That's his name.
No, that's a longtime right-wing freak that has just kind of been out there on Twitter for a while. That's just a classic right there.
Yes, you have to bring it all back. So still, though, there was more going on, though. Trump, actually, I was wondering yesterday when all the news broke and the day before what his response would be. And he had a truth or two over on his site there. But he did go on Newsmax, and he was actually talking about how surprised he was. Watch.
Thank you very much. It's good to see you. My honor. So Tucker Carlson was sitting here 2 weeks ago interviewing you. He's gone. What do you make of that? Well, I'm shocked. I'm surprised. He's a very good person, a very good man, and very talented, as you know, and he had very high ratings. So we're just learning about it almost as we speak. You and I just said, wow, was somebody fired? But I think Tucker's been terrific. He's been, especially over the last year or so, he's been terrific to me.
Well, we can expect that. Anybody Donald Trump can deem good to him is okay with everything else in the world. But then again, let's remind everyone how much Tucker Carlson tweeted and text and left messages about how much he despised Donald Trump and didn't want to talk about his ass anymore. but we're just going to gloss over that part. So as he's surprised by this is the thing. He brought up ratings and how good he is to him. Maybe it's something else, Dan. Maybe.
Everyone in this situation, from the folks like super in the front, like Jesse Waters, doing that. Tucker Carlson, he exists, and I kind of liked him, and anyways, they're all playing a tightrope because Rupert Murdoch did a real like Logan Roy gangster kind of move by going, yeah, I'll definitely fire the top money maker for my network, A, just for mathematical purposes, and B, because I am willing to shift this and make this network and its voice into my own. So if you have a predicament if you're Jesse Waters, and you see, okay, there's power in doing the Tucker Carlson thing, but there's clearly a sun that's too close for me to fly by. I'm definitely going to walk that tightrope very carefully because Tucker Carlson also still has that audience. And even though him and Trump are behind the scenes, those are mutual audiences in the Republican base that are very powerful that even the Republican Party machine can't tap into that well anymore. And so whoever has the good graces of these two like major kingmakers in Tucker Carlson and Donald Trump is going to do well with the very, very lucrative, financially speaking, and also power speaking Republican Party. But that's really what this is. It's like a very tight, careful jockeying for power. And the funny thing is, not so funny, but like Donald Trump is the weakest one in this. I think it's Tucker Carlson who really like holds the strings because that's a microphone that people are going to listen to. He was still kind of keeping for that Rush Limbaugh sort of barrier, that Rush Limbaugh vacuum that was there of leading the Republican Party and kind of giving them marching orders for what they talk about. Without that, and barring any contract, Tucker Carlson can still do that. But without that, there's just nothing else there to help fuel what Donald Trump is doing. He can't do it all alone.
Just real quick, because I want to shift to the CNN stuff, but because I would have asked this yesterday. We talked to Burbank yesterday. What do you think he's going to do next? What is the best move for him?
So there are a lot of, y'all remember Current TV and Keith Olbermann stuff, so I'm getting flashbacks of that. There could be a period where he can't go on any network, like an exclusivity thing. So the best thing, the only logical thing to do is go independent, maybe go side with Rumble, maybe go with Daily Wire. He's one of those people who can't just go fully independent. He's going to be able to make a lot of money for whatever company wants to build a brand off of him, like Chris Cuomo and News Nation or whatever, right? But ultimately, like, yeah, that's definitely going to be his next move. I think after 1 week of vacation, he's going to know this is my talent. I'm going to keep monetizing this or make more money. I don't think he would run for president, and I don't think he would do quite well if he did that, at least right now. I think there's a little bit more groundwork that needs to be done that can be done with a podcast too.
That's wild.
Before he runs for president.
A potential run for president is wild. Let's jump really fast, guys. Let's skip SOT 3. Let's go to 4. Because again, we talked about Trump mentioned ratings and how good he is to him. This is just something, I mean, these folks can't get out of their brains. It was even mentioned on Hannity's show on Fox News. But for a quick second, if you blink, you might miss it. Watch.
But I mean, we're not talking about Tucker. I don't really have any details on it, but he had a massive audience and has a huge following. This guy had nobody.
Nobody.
And
then he got demoted. He lost his primetime show. He spun it as, this is really good for me to have to wake up before noon and be on a morning show with two women who were more prepared and smarter on the daily. And he was screamed at Caitlin Collins, who's probably, he's old enough to be her father. She's a very hardworking journalist, whatever you think of CNN. She's very smart, very hardworking. And then he got called out by Poppy Harlow. In other words, like, these comments don't work. But Chris Licht, I think it's the first time he's really shown some moxie since he's been there, honestly, to have fired Don Lemon.
Oh man, it's weird. Suddenly, Kellyanne Conway is promoting Caitlin Collins and Poppy Harlow, and even Licht for doing the move in the first place. That's how much disdain they had for Don Lemon. But again, for a second, you can hear, we don't know anything about Tucker, nothing about Tucker. There's only a network that he used to work for. They did nothing about Tucker. But let's talk about something else. Last, really fast, because it was a joyous occasion for a second until Handy brought up Tucker. Look at the other contributor's face. He wasn't very happy.
But I mean, we're not talking about Tucker. I don't really have any details on it, but he had a massive
Tight-lipped is an understatement for this whole thing. Let's take this first break. Dan, you got a last second? You have something to say? I can see you start.
No, that just from my experience, that's the sound of someone who just heard a producer to say, "Remember the memo we got to not say anything about it." Not that we've done that at TYT, but I know that's the face that you'd like. Oh man,
this is I really have to avoid what I can and can't say. We'll see. Now let's take this break, you guys. A few of your comments from these first couple stories, but after that, when we get back, we've got some changing of information scientifically by trusted individuals down in Florida when it comes to COVID vaccine effects. We'll do that. We'll do a whole bunch more when we get back.
Welcome to the Damage Report. I'm John Idarola. This is gonna be a big one.
Meanwhile, in the Arctic, you know where this is going. You watch the Damage Report, the Arctic's on fire. Obviously, why would we be talking about the Arctic except to tell you that it's melting once again? The Republicans aren't that interested in it. I wonder why. Lift out of poverty up to 3.7 million people, including an estimated 1.3 million children. Hashtag save the children? Not if it costs money. I mean, come on.
What's happening? I'm Dr. Rashad Ritchie, host of Indisputable with Dr. Rashad Ritchie. Here's the bottom line. I play no games about policy, period. Too many people's lives are at stake. So here's what I do. I challenge conservative ideology that hinders the growth of this country. I make sure we place our facts in proper context, and I have no problem debating anyone on a position that I have. Progressives have the ideas to change the world, but when you really look at it, progressives have always change this world for the better. I want you to tune into my new show, Indisputable with Dr. Rashad Ritchie, right here on the TYT Network, 2:30 p.m. Eastern Time, 11:30 a.m. Pacific Time. I'll see you there.
Everything that we've accomplished over the years is because of our members who've allowed us to remain independent of corporate interests and reach 20 million followers. Now is the time to bring as many people into the progressive movement as possible. We're inviting you to be the change and help bring a community-powered progressive change machine to life. Details are at tyt.com/change. If you're a member, thank you. We need you to remain so. If you're one of the thousands of viewers out there who's not a member yet, the time has come for you to join now. We need you more than ever. tyt.com/change.
Watch list, all you crazy folks out there. Crazier folks on Twitch. Love you guys over there. Strange Beard 914 says, why are all of our politicians older than the retirement age? I guess that's the reason why they're trying to continue to make it even later and later and later. This is, of course, in reference to President Biden announcing his re-election campaign, which, again, is why many other Democrats weren't really ready to say whether or not they would back it or not before this announcement came, because then they'd be stuck with that on tape. You can understand that. One more, you guys, up from TYT members. Vicky says, Tucker's fans, classic Stockholm syndrome. They want nothing else to do with anyone else that might actually tell them a little bit of truth, but they can be fine. Kill me to lie to them too. Let's go to this next story.
And it's still happening, where people are still holding up the illusion that these things save lives. These things are not saving lives. What saves lives, frankly, is freedom to speak and freedom to find truth. What saves lives is immunity. You know?
Remember that guy? That's the Florida's Surgeon General, Joseph Ladapo. And that's when he was first getting in. He's waving around that mask and he's like, remember these things, they don't work. That's been his whole approach. That's been the whole reason why Governor DeSantis even put him there in place. Well, there's news out now about his expertise and the way that he's been working on those numbers and the results of some of this COVID stuff. Let's take a look here. So this Florida Surgeon General, Joseph Ladapo personally altered a state-driven study about COVID-19 vaccines last year in order to suggest that some doses pose a significantly higher health risk for young men than had been established by the broader medical community. That's according to a newly obtained document. Maybe you guys remember that. They were talking about young men, 19 to, let's say, 30 or 34, that suddenly have these heart issues. There's more. Ladaple's changes, released as part of a public records request, presented the risks of cardiac death to be more severe than previous versions of the study. He later then used the final document in October to bolster disputed claims that Pfizer, BioNTech, and Moderna vaccines were dangerous to young men. It spread like wildfire. I think you guys remember that. As a matter of fact, even at this roundtable, as we see all of the Zoom call folks behind them, he was pushing it even further. Remember this?
Do you want to talk about what you found with the data in Florida looking at folks and the myocarditis?
Yeah, it's like, how many different ways do you want to say the same thing? So Joe here, Joseph, Dr. Freeman, we've got two Joes here, just shared their study that basically found that the risk with these mRNA COVID-19 vaccines is just much higher. It's not in the same ballpark as any of the other widely used vaccines.
So now that this has come out about him changing actually the results based off of what he wanted to see, he's disputing that. He's like, I'm a smart guy. You know, I taught, I learned, I have this degree in that. This has nothing to do with politics. This is just my interpretation of the results. You'd have to have all the results, though, in order to get these types of interpretations. Look at this really fast. This isn't a graphic, guys, but this is over from Politico. It said the researchers who viewed a copy of the edits said Ladaple removed an important analysis that would have contradicted his recommendation. Daniel Salmon, director of the Institute of Vaccine Safety at the Johns Hopkins Bloomberg School of Public Health, called Ladaple's changes, quote, really troubling. So he can say he's got all these changes that happened, but at the end of it, he literally just changed it so it could fit the narrative of their political approach, so that Ron DeSantis could continue to say, yo, those masks don't work, as he's spinning it around his finger, and definitely not those vaccines, because if you're a young male, it's going to really hurt you. Weird, because I think they're trying to appeal to a certain demographic for voting purposes. I'd call that politics. But still, this has been the approach that he's taken, and now this is all coming out, he's still pushing this whole thing. I don't know, man. I think it was Chris Hayes tweeted earlier today or yesterday about this and pointed out how big of a scandal this really should be seen as. But Dan, I'm not really sure if people are seeing it that way.
It won't, because this was happening before COVID-19. As with many things, COVID-19 exacerbated existing flaws and issues with a lot of things that are going on, but specifically with American society and how we're taking in information. But people don't even want... I mean, there's just so much projection because all these like COVID-19 deniers and people who are suggesting alternative forms of medicine and trying to undermine any form of scientific legitimacy. Say what you want to about the CDC, but there's a scientific community that's trying to reach towards getting a broader truth. And these are people who make up the vast majority of the scientific community, not the ones who just get on Twitter and buy blue checks and try to feed to a series of different podcast audiences about feeding them information they want to hear. But that's the thing about the American sort of like informational system right now, is that not only is it just projection where you have this Florida official saying that, oh, look at what these COVID, like this entire complex is trying to hide from you. They're hiding reports and studies and they're changing the information. Meanwhile, I'm hiding reports and studies and changing all that same information, or like the same topics of that stuff. But not only is it just that projection, but it's not going to change anything, like you said, because people are looking for who's going to tell them the right opinions first, the ones they want to hear. And then they'll check and go, oh, you see, this person's not wrong. How can they be wrong? They have this credential here, and they went to this school and that college. By the way, 10 minutes later, I'm going to be talking about how all these colleges are crap and they're teaching kids nonsense. So that is a perfect example. It's just what makes you feel comfortable, what makes Republicans specifically, especially these anti-vaxxers, comfortable in their blindness of information and reality. And it's unfortunate that they then will go towards people who are especially suffering from long COVID or more likely to catch COVID-19. They make lives harder for them because of their paranoid nonsense.
These are some of the factors that contributed to more deaths, more sicknesses, as you mentioned, even long COVID. And folks that are miserable right now, they will not blame the folks who talked them into it. Also, he was a supporter of hydroxychloroquine. That's all you really have to know about this guy. Let's go to this next story. This is out in, where is this happening? In Montana. This is not surprising for that state. Let's go.
If you disallow the use of the medical care that is accepted by every major medical association, if you disallow that care and don't allow people to have access to that, the only therapy left is either A, meaningless, or B, conversion therapy, which is torture. Intersex people exist, trans people exist, and this bill doesn't change that. At the very end of the bill, the letter that says life-altering medical procedures should wait until they are adults. What I will say is if you are, by this bill and by what these amendments do, if you are forcing a trans child to go through puberty when they are trans, that is tantamount to torture. If you vote yes on this bill and yes on these amendments, I hope the next time there's an invocation, when you bow your heads in prayer, you see the blood on your hands.
That's out in Montana. That's Representative Zoe Zephyr. She made that speech as they're debating this bill that, of course, many Montanans, Republicans here, are fighting with gender-affirming care for minors. So all that you heard her say there, you have to wonder, man, this must have been really horrible, because you know what they did? They decided to go ahead and shut her down, silence her, and make sure that she can't speak anymore. Crazy. Let's go to those details, because this Montana Freedom Caucus, a group of conservative lawmakers, they responded by accusing Ms. Zephyr in a letter of attempting, this is what they said, attempting to shame the legislative body using hateful rhetoric. That's their excuse. Now, this letter, which misgendered Ms. Zephyr, called her to be censured. Maybe, Emilio, you did this one? Maybe there was a longer portion of this speech where all the hate was spewing from Representative Zephyr's mouth, and then they all got offended, and there was actually a problem there, because I still didn't see it based off of things that people tend to say. This is the bill that she was disputing, though. It was approved near the end of the week, in which the state's House and Senate passed several measures targeting transgender people. And on Tuesday, the governor, who's a Republican, asked lawmakers to strengthen the legislation banning what doctors call gender-affirming care for minors with a series of amendments, according to the Montana Free Press. So in the letter, Mr. Gianforte, that governor, said that gender-affirming care was a misleading term and compared it to Orwellian newspeak. That sounds like your opinion, bro. But still, though, after this whole thing went down, she was silenced, and she pointed this out. This is what she tweeted. The Republican Party of Montana is refusing to allow me, a transgender representative, to speak on any bill. On any bill. Don't forget about that part. Not just this bill that they figured that she had this hateful, divisive rhetoric on, but any bill. She said this is fundamentally undemocratic. My light is on, and I'm ready to speak on behalf of the constituents who elected me to do so. So this is happening in Montana for different reasons of what happened also in Tennessee, except in Tennessee they tried to kick everyone out that disputed with them on gun violence and gun legislation. Still, though, some supporters did come out in Montana as they saw this going down and saw the silencing of this one particular representative, and they spoke out. Okay, so Dan, the debate off of the way that folks may go about gender-affirming care, specifically with minors, is something that's a hot button issue for many folks who think this is abuse, who think these are children who don't know what they're talking about, or thinking with, I think, not much of analysis towards the human beings that are behind these debates, these fights, these pundit talking about every time. So when you have this type of debate, I would think it's useful, even if you disagree with it, to have someone who actually knows the experience, lives it, and can actually talk to you about it. But instead that becomes, hey, that person's looking to do A, B, or C. So there's a lack of trust there. But if you actually want to get to the bottom of what it is and actually prove your point that this is abuse, which if you want to have this debate, have it. But to silence someone kind of shows you're not willing to have that debate, or you're not very confident in your stance.
It's the perfect microcosm of the modern Republican Party. They, even down to, never mind how they constantly reference George Orwell, even though we're at least 2 years away from either a completely that on the book ban list or a Republican revised version of George Orwell where all of their misreadings of it make sense. But if someone is, speaking from their experience, which you're right, like that's a better way to have this approach, is you have people who are like going through these experiences speak and add to the democratic process we're supposed to have. Having someone introduce a phrase like gender affirming care and then a member of the government trying to make sure that phrase is stricken away and you can't use that is not newspeak. In fact, no, that's not how newspeak works. If you're the government and you are striking away speech, that is what is the censorship that they're talking about in 1984, not the introduction of that speech from the grassroots, from people who are at the forefront of bringing education about this, that a lot of it's new, a lot of it's been existed for years, but has been suppressed by these same religious fundamentalists. They're bringing it to the forefront. They're making it so the government has to address this because, again, like these are people's lives, laws, care that they're getting with their doctors, that they, like everyone who is qualified is okay with this and they're going forward with it. The people who aren't qualified, the politicians who claim to want to stay outside of people's lives, are the ones who are once again showing how just inept and hypocritical they are.
This is one of those things, man. If you stop and think about it, every time these types of conversations had, when it's not about trans rights, but it's just about LGBTQ in general, a lot of this basis is based off of their religious beliefs, specifically what they've been told in their churches and synagogues and whatever else. By their priests and everyone like that. So if this is the basis for the reasons why you're trying to pass laws that would limit other folks' rights, folks that you openly hate, that you called names and said they should be eradicated, all that stuff, and oh my God, these children, they're going to change their minds later. What is it that you're doing about these folks that you're saying are changing their minds later and have been brainwashed by their parents and the folks around them that are looking to destroy this country? It all goes back to you thinking it's weird, to you thinking you don't understand it, and then again, God told you that. So what about the people in the same country? Do they have less rights to believe something different? Do they have less rights to do something with their own bodies? Because let's keep it real. You're not thinking about them past that election, past that debate, past that one legislative body where you're trying to pass these laws so that you can then tell your hateful constituents that supported you on this, hey, I passed some laws to hate more people, reelect me. That's always the bottom line. It always goes back to your religious beliefs. That's not the way it's supposed to be in this country. In fact, we always taught how wonderful it is, and it's not like that. But when you pass laws based on that and then hide it, it's not really about religion. Find yourself in this circle. Let's get to the most fun story of the day. It's the crimes are serious, but the criminal is absolutely unserious. Let's go.
We were once a normal family, but thanks to the media, our lives have been interrupted. And we'd like privacy, and I would like to go back to being a normal husband. But I can't, because I can't breathe, I can't walk. People say that's an act. Let me try to stand up. Let me try to stand up. Exactly, exactly.
No, that's not someone on SNL pulling off a new sketch, a little bit of a preview for it. That is Nicholas Alaverdian. He's an American con man, apparently, and also he's a fugitive. He's wanted for his sexual assaults that he's been pulling off. And there he is trying to make sure that people don't believe that's who he really is. Here's what he was up to. Let's look at this. This is a mugshot, at least as we talk about him. He faked his death as well in 2020 to avoid sexual assault and fraud charges. And then he fled to Europe. He was found in a hospital in Scotland when he got sick with COVID. Now he's pretending to be this sick Scottish man, and his name is no longer Nicholas Alaverdian. It's now Arthur Knight. I don't know where he got that name from. He's now a Scottish man. Let's keep it real. So there he is with all of his issues, but he also appeared on NBC's Dateline. This story has gone full international, considering he's over in Scotland, but he's still claiming to be this guy Arthur Knight. Here's more of his act. See if you can find out if this is really him.
What do you say to someone who believes that you are Nicholas Alaverdian?
I am not, Andrea. I am not Nicholas Alaverdian. I do not know how to make this clear.
What do you say to people who say these are crocodile tears? He's putting on a show. This is all an act. Oh,
Andrea,
no,
that's a low blow. That's a right low blow.
Oh, no, Nicholas. I mean, Arthur. Someone There he is crying. See if you can find some tears. I mean, you can tell when someone pushed the crocodile tears line, he decided to ramp it up a little bit more. But let's keep it real. The best part is when he tried to stand up. Let's watch that again.
Because I can't breathe, I can't walk. People say that's an act. Let me try to stand up. Let me try to stand up. Exactly.
Exactly. See, I tried. See, exactly. Now, these Scottish outlets have also been reporting on this. Maybe they can get something out of it the Dateline couldn't, Dan. Watch this.
His extradition case has rolled through the courts for months. This man calls himself Arthur Knight, Glasgow-based and married to Miranda. US authorities say he is in fact Nicholas Rossi, and they want him extradited to stand trial.
The prosecution narrative is that you are an alleged rapist. There are restraining orders, assaults, fraud in a very colourful criminal record that reflects a dangerous sexual predator.
Despite his denials, America wants to extradite a man they say has more than a dozen aliases. He's accused of faking his own death, complete with a hoax obituary and a call to a priest posing as the grieving widow.
She sounded like Hyacinth Bouquet, a very high-pitched English woman's accent.
Father Bernard Healy agreed to a request to hold a memorial mass until the police stepped in.
The detective said to me he thought it was Nicholas using a voice disguiser.
This guy's really, really trying. One last part. Remember that guy's face? He had the glasses on. He had the breathing mechanism over his mouth and nose. See if you can identify if he's the same person we saw in that mugshot. So does this reporter. Watch.
An international manhunt took police to this hospital last December. The man calling himself Arthur Knight had caught COVID. While he lay on a ventilator, officers were alerted to tattoos on his body. A court would later be told that fingerprints showed a match to Nicholas Rossi. How do these images compare to the man facing extradition?
Could you take your glasses off? Would you mind? And are you able to take off your mask? Do you see a similarity?
Do you?
The eyebrows are the same.
Well, I guess that does it, Dan. Whose side are you on? Is this guy getting away with it?
I mean, I don't mean to take this in too much of an ableist direction, but in the first interview, he was like, I am not Neville Chamberlain. But in this one, he's like, no, do I look the same or do I not? By the way, not even a good, South London accent, let alone, a Scottish accent.
Oh, you can tell, that's right. Yeah.
Oh,
Which area?
Yeah, it's like someone who has watched a lot of James Bond in the 60s, their idea of what a British person sound like. And then it's like you need to remind them, by the way, you're supposed to be Scottish. It's like, give me a Scottish phrase. Fish sticks. It's comical. It's the fact that, he might have used a sound box, like a voice vocoder to change his, yes, his crimes are very serious. This is, sorry, this is all hitting me at one point.
Yeah.
You're going to flee to Scotland? You're going to flee to there's some places where it's a little bit harder to get extradited to.
I was wondering.
I don't know why I'm doing Crime 101 here on the watch list for whoever's interested. I don't know, game for free, right? But there's countries you could go to make it harder to get extradited to than Scotland, which has a pretty good deal with the US, which is hence why they tracked you down to the hospital and got your tattoos and fingerprints while you had COVID. He just seems so bad at crime in addition to doing bad crimes. It's sort of hilarious because you get a little bit into the id of this person who goes, I'm so smart, I can get away with it. You're all so stupid that I can put minimal effort into this and get away with it. Perhaps because it's worked for a little bit while, but now that there's such a lot of attention onto it, it's not working. And then super last thing. Yeah. Scottish and British media in general always way harder than American media. And American media, they didn't go, this is your face, take your mask off, are you the same? I'm telling you, once again, we need to get a little bit tougher in this media space.
Well, because they're worried about access, they're worried about what, in this particular case, not necessarily access, but when it comes to political folks that they don't want to embarrass with reality and truth, it's because they're worried they're going to be cut out of any more access to them. But by the way, as you pointed out, I want to highlight it. They matched fingerprints and they matched the tattoos. Yo, listen, if you guys are looking for me, I can't get rid of this any kind of way easily. It goes all the way up. So whatever tattoos this guy has that they matched and also matched those fingerprints that apparently he didn't burn off because he hasn't watched enough crime drama movies that don't really work out anyway, he thought he'd get away with it. But they still have to say, well, looks like your eyebrows are kind of the same. Bro, how about the tattoos and how about the fingerprints? Come on, bro. I mean, I know they're tough, Dan, but it's a little bit unnecessary at that point. Just ask him about the tattoos. Fair. All right, let's go to this next story because this is devastating and something that no parent would ever want to see. But cops ran up in the house here and children were home.
Hello? Is anybody listening to me? Hello? 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 I'm calling your watch tonight. Hello? Hello? Your officer, you know I'm talking to the speaker. You need to look up. Stop. He's literally grabbing me too. Hello? Nobody's in there, a parrot. So you guys need to leave. Okay, I'm on your way right here.
That camera angle you saw there was from a camera view, I believe a Ring camera, it's an inside of the house camera. And a parent saw her young teenage daughter being assaulted and arrested by these cops. The door was unlocked. They came in and assumed a whole bunch of stuff. But they didn't only arrest their daughter. Let's go to the second stop before we get the details here, you guys. They also went after their teenage son as well. Let's check that out. These two dangerous teenagers inside of their house must have really done something. So let's find out why cops were there. This is October of last year, and it's just now getting this attention because of these videos. So deputies were dispatched to a call for service at an apartment complex in South San Gabriel, Los Angeles area. And according to LA County Sheriff's Department, the caller reported that there was a person screaming, arguing, heard, and someone being hit. Neighbors said deputies arrived and tried to open the doors to several units, just got to snatching on doors, but all those were locked. And they eventually got to Sadie Cordova and Justin Baker's unit. That's where the 19-year-old had left after returning home from the gym and left the door unlocked. Sadie and Justin were then getting breakfast for the family, so they were out, and then they saw this on the camera. And as you saw her trying to talk to them, they weren't really listening. This is what she said. My daughter called us, and there was 3 or 4 sheriffs in my living room, and they're not telling me what's going on. She said, Mom, you need to get here. I just dropped everything, the breakfast, and Justin went to the car. I hopped in the car, and then when she told me that they were trying to grab her, I turned on that camera, which then we caught all that stuff. So, of course, after all this, after you hem up a couple of teenagers and then apparently have the wrong house, then this is what goes down. Is the San Gabriel family is now suing the Los Angeles Sheriff's Department. Deputies who entered the home slapped those handcuffs, slammed their son and I guess their daughter up against the wall outside. All for what? For not cooperating. Let's look at this last thing from the deputies' response. They said the deputies announced their presence and attempted to explain the nature of the call. but the occupants were uncooperative and refused to comply. With what? After several attempts to have the occupants of the residence exit the location to ascertain if anyone was injured inside, the deputies made entry and use of force against the juvenile occurred. Why did it occur? Why did they force themselves inside? And then after they looked and forced themselves inside and slapped handcuffs on everyone, did they then go in and determine everyone was safe inside? Sounds like they did, or else they'd have been talking about how afterwards we did determine that the house that we broke into and then hemmed up a couple of teenagers to discover that they were lying to us and the crime that we were there for was actually inside. They didn't say any of that stuff. I wonder why, Dan.
Yeah, this was supposed to be, from what I was reading, a call because I think like a neighbor reported hearing like screams or yelling or something like that. But once you found the people in there, once you figured out that they're kids and they're not armed or anything, and there's nothing else but some screaming dogs in there, then y'all as the cops have to associate that situation as, okay, wrong house, broke in, like made a mistake here. These people are clearly safe. And if I have any reason to call myself a law enforcement officer, I should probably go to any of the other things that are going on in Los Angeles that might be wrong.
There's tons, by the way. By the way, I don't want to miss the irony of we've hearing about all last week and a half of 4 to 5 big news stories, because there's others we don't have any news on, of folks going into the wrong house, to the wrong door, to the wrong effing driveway and getting shot by homeowners. So imagine these cops roll up, jiggle a door, and walk in, and then say these folks are the same type of person who would shoot first. Then they're dead, and cops say, look how they assaulted us first. You see how there's no real normal process with this, and how if you tell everyone go to shooting when someone's at front of your door, oh, unless it's the cops, then you find yourself in a bad situation no matter what. This is this country, you guys. Let's go to this last story.
Today, Houston's chapter of the Food Not Bombs have collected their 19th ticket for feeding the homeless, today in which we fed over 80. Since March 1st of this year, Mayor Sylvester Turner has criminalized the feeding of people in public, as well as other efforts to remove the homeless encampments within Houston, such as sweeps. His actions are wrong and heinous, and should be changed, and Houston's Food Not Bombs will collect as many tickets as we need until there is one. We will continue to protest this law and continue to feed people that are hungry.
Another big city. Now, Houston has police officers readily and regularly citing folks that are helping feed homeless folks on the streets. This group is called Food Not Bombs. That seems pretty intimidating. In fact, quite violent. We need some police officers to make sure we stop this. Here's a couple of the posts that they put up as they've been getting ticketed quite normally. Benjamin, on March 1st, he caught it. Philip also caught it a couple days later. Sherry and also Rebecca then caught it a few days afterwards because they haven't learned their lesson yet. You're not supposed to help anyone in need in this country. What you're supposed to do is stomp on them, walk by, call the cops, and hope that they murder them. That's what we're supposed to do in this country. So this is what the Food Not Bombs work is doing and what they've been talking about with these interactions with cops. So sharing food with 6 or more homeless individuals outdoors could lead to a $2,000 fine and jail time in Houston. But a federal lawsuit filed by a Harris County man this week looks like they're trying to change this, quote, cruel law. This lawsuit has also been filed by this group so they can get a little bit more justice and maybe some freedom in this country. Benjamin Franklin Kraft Rendon, a member of the Houston Food Not Bombs since 2012, was issued a citation on Wednesday for violating the city's anti-food sharing ordinance. So he filed this lawsuit on Thursday, arguing that that ordinance is unconstitutional, vague, too broad, and violates the First Amendment's protections for free speech and freedom of assembly. Maybe, Dan, if they told the cops, hey, no, I'm not giving them food, I'm giving them handguns and also some bullets, then they'd be like, oh, that's fine. You can hand them all that you want. That's cool. This is what we're looking for in this country.
Free markets, yes. Free food, no. Like, what? Something Christian values. These are people who constantly talk about all these parts of religion, but increasingly more that veil is always used for, I have my right as a person who's practicing religion to take other people's rights away. It's not even towards, hey, there are great parts about the religion as well. Like we care about feeding the needy and we care about charity and we care about looking inward and family and all those other different things. In the political space, it's only being used as a guise for taking away rights. It's so hard to argue. And you know, there's a bunch of systemic things on city and local levels, like ordinances that make zoning difficult so you can't build new houses, sure. But an anti-feeding rule, that's That is dystopian. That's insane. It's illegal to feed someone who needs to be fed. It's illegal to give someone water in the city of Houston. That's what that homelessness ordinance is doing, and it's cruel and inhumane, if not unconstitutional. So yeah, I hope they challenge it, and I'm glad that there are folks there on the ground who are doing what, quite frankly, the Democratic Party is absolutely failing to do there down locally in Houston. Because that's ridiculous.
Yeah, so this is the thing, though. Look, maybe the reasons behind the reasons why they don't want homeless folks to be fed, just like restaurants may throw out tons and tons of leftover food at the end of a night, and there's no way they'd give it to folks in need, perfectly good food, instead we'll waste and destroy it, is because we don't want folks to then come around. We don't want them to get comfortable in this one particular location or then come back looking for more. It's a bad look. No one wants to deal with maybe loitering people outside in front of an establishment. It could cool off business, whatever it is. This is just generally on the street. And even with that argument, where do they think folks are going? So there's that thought. But then where do you think folks are going? Do you think they go, oh, yeah, that's right. I was hungry, but now that I can't get any food, I'm just never going to eat again and I'll be perfectly fine. There's no answer afterwards. So if you have an issue with all this stuff, that's cool to have an issue with. But then what are we doing about it as a society? We're just on the punitive side and then say these non-humans apparently will disappear as long as I close my eyes and plug my ears. I'll never have to deal with them ever again. That's the end game of our enforcement here when it comes to folks that are less fortunate and many times are victims of this capitalistic system that's got them in that position. Thank you, Dan. Thank you for all that. Sorry for my rants at the end.
No, but this is a rant family here for sure. It's my pleasure to be on. Always a good time to be on, even with short notice. And
yes,
yeah, I encourage folks to check out all the stuff I'm doing at youtube.com/Dan from the internet, twitch.tv/Dan from the web. This week we have an interview with Matt Bender, one of Elon Musk's favorite journalists, and so he'll be on in the latter half of the show. That'll be at 7:30 Pacific. I guess 10:30 Eastern, twitch.tv/Dan from the web. So
check that out, you guys. It's a great show. We'll see you later, Dan. Thank you again for being here with us. Thank you guys for joining me as well. Up next, you have the Young Turks, Anna Kasparian and Cenk Uygur. Go see them. We'll see you tomorrow.